Good morning. My name is John. I'm one of the pastors here at First Free. Hello to all of you who are here in person. Hello to all of you who are tuning in online from wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. I know First said it on the video announcements, but if this is your first time here, an extra special welcome and thank you. It can be a big deal to come into a big building you've never gone to, or to a church if you've never been, surrounded by people that you don't know. And so thank you for making this a part of your weekend. Please stop by that First Free Central desk, the wooden desk in the middle of the gym. Ask any question you have about who we are, what we do, how you can get involved, and please take advantage of that free gift, because that's just our way of saying thanks for stepping out, thanks for joining us. Just to clear things up, John, you sound a little weird. I do sound a little weird. I was pretty vocal about this a few weeks ago. My wife and I went through COVID like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. And as like a get well present, my daughter gave me a cold. So I promise it's a cold, I'm okay. But nowadays it's just weird, isn't it? Like it's just weird to talk about. So to say like you have a cold, it used to be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I hope you feel better. And now it's like, stay away from me. So last night as I was speaking, you've ever had like a cough that you're trying to hide? Yeah, it doesn't go well. So for like 50 minutes, I just have this cough that's like stuck in my throat, and I'm trying to preach through it because I'm like, whatever you do not cough in the world today. Do not cough on the microphone. And so I'm just like choking on my sermon, blocked by this cough, right? And then to make matters worse, I had like a little snot right here. Too much to share, I know. But I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I don't have a Kleenex. I have a microphone on my face. Am I going to be like, come get prayer later? Like, no one wants that. No one wants that. So I do have a Kleenex. I have a cough drop. I'm going to do my best to hold it together. If I cough, please do not evacuate the room. I promise things are okay. Things are okay. I'm happy to be with you for another week. We've been going through a series since August on what's called the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount. If you're not familiar, the Sermon on the Mount is this incredible teaching or collection of teachings from Jesus. And we find it in Matthew 5, 6, and 7. And what we do here is we usually just go through a book of the Bible or chapters of the Bible, verse by verse. We draw out as much as we possibly can, and that's what we've been doing. But in case you haven't been here, you can always go back to our website, firstfree.org, and watch all the archived messages. But let me just set the scene again, just in case some of us haven't been here. Jesus finds himself, it says that a great crowd of people began to surround him, and he sat down and he began teaching his disciples. Now, in the first century world, a disciple, that's a word that we don't really use nowadays. But in the first century world, a disciple was kind of like a student, but more like an apprentice. If you've been to college, maybe you're in college right now, right? You can have your degree, this is my major, but then you take a bunch of classes that sometimes have nothing to do with your major, but you plan it out because maybe it's going to be an easy A. Come on. You know what I'm talking about, right? So you could be like majoring in like biology, but you take like a music appreciation class, not because you can play music, but it's like, oh, spend the semester listening to music. Yeah, I can do that, right? Or take a class on golf, even though you have no aspiration to aspire to be a golfer, but you're like, I can go outside to the driving range. Awesome. Yep, I'll do that. Or philosophy, because, well, philosophy. But an apprentice is different. An apprentice actually says, I want to learn from you because I want to actually do what you do. That's different. And so in the first century world, a disciple was kind of like an apprentice. A disciple, a student, would go to a teacher and say, I want to know how you do things. I want to know how you read the scriptures. I want to know how you teach. I want to know your worldview. I want to know how you interpret current events. I want to know how you interact with people. I want to see and watch and study you so that maybe, just maybe, one day, if I'm lucky, you might take the baton and pass it on to me to continue doing what you're doing. So I want to spend as much time as I possibly can learning how you do life so that maybe, just maybe, if that day comes where you pass the baton to me, I can continue doing the work the way that you do it long beyond your time here. And so, this scene is kind of set where Jesus has his disciples, but then this great crowd of people who also want to follow him. And maybe they're following him because they heard about a miracle that he did. Maybe they're following him because they saw a miracle he did. Maybe they're following him because they heard one of his teachings or about one of his teachings, but nonetheless, this great crowd of people are starting to follow him. They want to gather around him. They want to be his students or his apprentice, or they want to follow his way of life. And so finally, it seems like Jesus sits down and for lack of a better word, gives this manifesto. This is what it looks like to do life the way that I do it. If you really want to know. If you really want to know what it looks like to be my disciple, if you really want to know what it looks like to follow after my example, if you really want to prepare yourself for a day where I might pass the baton to you, this is what it looks like. And I think Jesus' message from the Sermon on the Mount is just as relevant 2,000 years later to us who come to buildings like this or take upon ourselves the title of Christian or follower of Jesus or whatever it might be. But we've also made this decision 2,000 years later that I want to follow Jesus. And so we also need to know how to do that. Earlier, Pastor Shane, our senior pastor, he kind of cut this sermon up into sections, and we started way back in August with what's called the Beatitudes, or these essential characteristics. There's like 8 of them. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst. And these are seen as like the essential characteristics, the character qualities of what it should look like to be a follower of Jesus. If you want to be my follower, if you want to be my apprentice, this is what your character should look like. Then last week, if you're here, we talked about these 2 almost word image lessons where Jesus says, if you're my disciple, you should look like salt and light in the world. Then he addresses what are like 6 areas of sin or temptation or difficulty, 6 things that are struggles in our lives that he said be on guard against. Be on guard about these 6 areas of sin in your life. Defend yourself against them. Be on guard about them. Don't let them take root in your heart. And then starting in Matthew chapter 6, he starts laying out what we've called spiritual disciplines or spiritual exercises. I think Shane called them kingdom exercises. It's almost these things like prayer or giving or fasting, these things that we do that are meant to strengthen our faith, bring health to our faith. And I want to pause here because as we continue and we finish this series on the Sermon on the Mount and we continue to look at these exercises, we want to be very clear about what we're saying these exercises are and what we're not saying they are. And so for the sake of being redundant, I think we just want to keep repeating this, that we're not saying that any of these exercises, giving, fasting, prayer, whatever it might be, none of them adds to what Christ did on the cross. None of it. So I'm made right, mankind is made right before God simply because of what he did on the cross. I can't add to that. I can't become more saved or more right before God by giving or praying or fasting or whatever it might be. I can't do that. But they're also not this like key that like, well, if I just do them, maybe I can't be like saved more, but if I do them more, I would imagine God would like me more. Maybe my life is in a rough spot. Maybe I'm in a difficult spot because I'm not doing these things enough. And maybe if I did them more, then God would like me more. Then maybe God would love me more. Then maybe things would go better in my life. So I just need to do more of these things, rack up more points with God so that my life looks a little bit different. That's not what these exercises are either. These exercises aren't what I call like the golden ticket. You know the golden ticket. I got a golden ticket. Right? Charlie? Willie? No one? I got a golden ticket. What was a golden ticket? Right? The golden ticket was this thing that there was a really, really small amount of, and everyone tried to stock up. Everyone tried to be the lucky one to get one of these golden tickets. And if you got the golden ticket, then you got the prize at the end. Your whole life was set. Your worries are gone. If you just had that golden ticket, I think sometimes we also treat these spiritual exercises that way. So we take prayer, we take the Lord's Prayer, and we say, well, if I can just pray all the right words in the right cadence with the right emotion, if I just say the right things during prayer, then God would like me, then things will go really well in my life because I got the golden ticket. I got the answer, and I'm one of the few people that have it. Or the Bible says that if I give, God's going to give me a whole lot more. So let me just do the math. There's this one, this huge house that I want. So if I give this much, then God will give me that. So what are the numbers? What do I have to balance out? How much do I have to give so I can get that thing that I want? I got the golden ticket. That's not it either. Today we're going to be talking about, one of the things we're going to talk about today is fasting. It's not a golden ticket. It's not this thing that I can wave like, oh, okay, now all my problems are going to go away. We call them exercises for a reason. Spiritual exercises, kingdom exercises. In what other contexts do we think about exercising? Right? Health, fitness, working out, we think about exercises. There's a whole lot of different exercises you can do, right? You can divide them into body parts, you can divide them into function. primary muscles or smaller muscles or opposing or complementary. You can divide it all up. There's a lot of different exercises that you can do. If I do physical exercises, will it help build strength in me? Yeah, it will. If I do physical exercises, will it help will it help my overall health? Probably, yeah. If I do exercises, will it maybe in some ways help? If I live a healthy lifestyle, will it help fend off certain illnesses or injuries or debilitating things? Yeah, it might. Yes. Yeah. But if I do exercises, does it mean I'm never going to be sick again? No. If I do exercises, does it mean I'm never going to be injured again? No. It's not a golden ticket. The exercises help bring health to me. They help bring strength to me. They help bring a greater sense of life to me. But it's not a golden ticket that says all my problems are going to go away. It's meant to strengthen and mature and bring health. That is the way that I think I view these spiritual exercises. It doesn't make God love me more. It doesn't make me any more right before him. And it's not a golden ticket that I can wave and say, well, as long as I do all the right things in the right way, then I'm going to have the life that I want and there's not going to be any problems. Instead, I see my spiritual life, what God made available to me through that cross. There's so much available to me, and sometimes so little that I take advantage of. So little that I tap into. What he did on that cross opened up this whole spiritual life to me. And these exercises help bring life to that spiritual life, help bring strength to that spiritual life so that I can kind of fend off those areas of sin in my life. It brought a sense of health and strength and overall maturity to my spiritual life. It doesn't mean everything's going to go great. Everything's going to go the way that I want. But it does build a strength and a health in my life. And that's what these spiritual exercises are meant to do. And so today we're going to look at two things. Jesus talks about fasting, so we're going to look at fasting, and we're going to look at another section that Jesus goes immediately into where he starts talking about how we view our possessions and treasure and wealth. And normally we might see those as two separate things, but it's me. And so I often try to find the connections between things. And so we're going to do our best to connect those two things together with the grace of God. So good luck to everyone as we go through this message. But before we get there, if you have your Bible, you can turn to Matthew chapter 6, verses 16 to 24, because that's where we're going to land. Matthew 6, verses 16 to 24. But before we do, I want us to look at a word that's in a verse that's actually in like the middle of the verses that we're going to talk about today. And the reason I want to do that is because I think if there's any hope that we're going to bring together this idea of fasting and this idea of where is our treasure and wealth and possessions and our perspective of our earthly things here, I think this verse grounds us. I think this verse is almost like a navigational beacon, if you will. And it's Matthew chapter 6, verse 21. Matthew chapter 6, verse 21. And Jesus says this: "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. I said I wanted to talk about a word. The word I want to talk about in that verse is actually the word heart. The word heart. If we use the word heart today, sometimes we think about it in a scientific, the cardiovascular, the thump, 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 thump. I'm going to say that a lot, by the way. Thump, 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 thump. So if that bothers you, I'm sorry. I'm going to do it a lot. Thump, 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 thump. Sometimes we think about the heart, and sometimes we think of our feelings, emotion. But in the ancient Hebrew culture, heart had a much, much deeper, richer, more encompassing idea. In the ancient Hebrew culture, the heart was the thump, 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 thump. They had the idea of that. Somehow, I don't know how they knew things way back then, but they did. They somehow knew that this was a part of your physical body and brought health and all that. And so they had that in mind, but it was so much more than that. In the ancient Hebrew culture, there wasn't a word in their language for brain. They didn't think about brain. For them, it wasn't this pathway of neurological signals that were being sent throughout your mind, and that's what kind of gave signals to the rest of your body. That wasn't it. You knew something in your heart. Your intellectual center was the heart. That's why there's phrases like, "I know it in my heart to be true." There was this knowing. An intellectual center was the heart in the ancient Hebrew culture. It was also the sense of wisdom. right and wrong and what do I do wasn't found in signals from my brain that gauge previous experiences and what I should do or not do. It was in your heart. I know things in my heart. Wisdom is in my heart. The ability to make connections from this point to that point, or this person to that place, or whatever it might be, was found in the heart. And so in the Hebrew culture, the heart was also my thoughts and my intellect, my sense of wisdom, the connections that I made. And so it was the thump, 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 but it was also the intellect, the wisdom, the connections that we made, and in the ancient Hebrew culture, it was our feelings and our emotions. It was, maybe sometimes what we think of more positive or constructive feelings. It was our sense of joy or happiness, love, peace. That was found in the heart. It came from the heart, out of the heart. Those things came. But also what we might think is like destructive or negative emotions, like pain or grief or sadness or despair or depression. Those things were also found in the heart, deeply connected to the heart. And so the heart in the ancient Hebrew culture was the thump, 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 thump. But it was also my intellect. It was my wisdom. It was the connections that I made from one point to another. But it was also my feelings and how I feel about you and how I feel about God. And the emotions that I attached to certain events or people or places was all a part of this sense of the heart. But it was also more than that. In the ancient Hebrew culture, the heart was also the source of my decisions. I choose things from my heart. It wasn't an intellectual brain thing. It wasn't a neurological process of making decisions. It was in my heart. I choose what I know in my heart to be true. And so in this culture, in this way of life, the idea of a heart was much, much bigger and deeper than we give it credit for. Now we think scientifically, we think about thoughts, we think of our mind, we think about previous experiences and family of origin and all of these things that come to why we think the way that we do. But here it was the heart. So what is Jesus saying? Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Where your treasure is, there your thoughts will be also. Where your treasure is, there your feelings will be also. Where your treasure is, there your emotions will be also. Where your treasure is, there your decisions will be also. Whatever has the attention or the focus of your treasure, whatever treasure it is, whatever that thing is that we identify as treasure, your mind and your thoughts and your decisions and your emotions will follow that. Yeah, so what has the attention of my heart? And so even though we're talking about fasting, what I really want us to come away with today is that regardless of how strong and independent and put myself together and pull myself up by my bootstraps, and I don't really talk about my heart, we all have a heart. Because we all have thoughts and emotions, feelings, we all make decisions. And Jesus is saying, to some extent or another, what captures our attention, what's the focus of our life, will also have our heart. And I hope we somehow communicate that something is going to drive your thoughts. Something is going to drive your emotions. Something is going to drive the decisions that you make. What drives our heart? And how can fasting redirect our focus so that God is the single master of my heart and nothing else? Yeah. Okay, so Jesus says this to begin this discussion on fasting. Matthew chapter 6, verses 16 to 18. He says, when you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others that they're fasting. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father, who is unseen, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Now, it just seems like 3 verses where Jesus is kind of giving his commentary and his instruction of how you're supposed to fast. And we could take it that way, and I could teach that out of those 3 verses, and we can have some sort of explanation about exactly what Jesus is saying. But as I was reading this, I realized that Jesus says the same phrase twice in those 3 verses. He says the same thing twice in 3 verses. And I can already see that your faces are no longer on me. You're reading the verses to figure out what phrase he said. It's happened in every service. You guys are just investigative. I like it. But he says the same phrase twice in those 3 verses that made me pause, almost like a giant stop sign. Pull the brakes. We might not be able to go that fast through these verses. 2 times. Jesus says, when you fast. At the beginning of verse 16, when you fast, do not look somber. In the beginning of 17, but when you fast, put oil on your head. When you fast. Now, what was interesting to me about that is, let's just say we're at church right now. That's good. Great. Good job. But if I were to say, okay, so when you go home, what is the assumption or the implication that I'm making? Yeah, that you're going to go home. Or if I say, okay, church is done. Okay, so when you eat dinner, what is the assumption or the implication that I'm making? Yeah, that you're going to eat dinner. So if Jesus says, okay, so when you fast, what is the assumption or implication that Jesus is making? Yeah, that you're going to fast. And so many people are smiling right now. I can see all of you. You're all kind of like, oh, shoot, dang. I see what he's saying. Yeah, that's the stop sign that I saw. That was the red light. Like, wait a second. Twice in 3 verses, Jesus says, when you fast. It's almost like there's this assumption or implication that we are going to fast. Slow down a second. Do we fast? I'm not sure we can go so fast through this. Do we do this? Yeah. How many of you say that you've ever fasted in your life? Yeah. This isn't a guilt trip, by the way. Please don't take it at that. Yeah. How many of you say that you fast regularly? Right. Yeah. Oh, we're all in the best crowd right now. Yeah. This was the red light that I had. This was the stop sign that I had. I'm not sure that we can just do 3 verses quickly about when you fast, this is how you should do it, until we pull back and actually talk about what fasting is, because I'm not sure that some of us are just quite there yet. Maybe it's not a part of our life. And that could be true of anyone who's been a follower of Jesus for a week or 40 years. Fasting may not be a part of our life. And so what this is, my hope for this is actually just kind of like a basic tutorial asking simple questions about what is fasting and why should we fast and is fasting in the Bible. I want us to at least be on the same page so that we can actually maybe answer the statement of Jesus, when you fast. Yeah? And so for some of us, and maybe this is a part of your life, this is something you do, and I'm not trying to say that sarcastically. If that's the case, awesome, well done. This might be really simple and basic for you, and I'm sorry, but for those of us who maybe need to hear this because it's challenging, I've never thought about this before, and it's kind of confusing, then you're also in the right place. So I want us to slow down a little bit because Jesus says, when you fast. And when it comes to these spiritual disciplines, Jesus actually only says it, I think, 3 times. He says, when you. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder if I did like a survey. I didn't, but if I were to do a survey of kind of the general evangelical American church, and I asked everyone, okay, let's just assume that Jesus, let's think that Jesus is assuming or implying that you do 3 spiritual disciplines in your life. What do you think they are? What are the 3 things that you think Jesus would imply that we should do? I mean, the top things that come to my head is maybe when you read your Bible, or when you go to church, or when you listen to worship music, or even better, when you play worship music, or when you preach, or when you're a part of a community group, or when you do this. All good and great things. But 3 times in the Sermon on the Mount, he says, when you do this. And it was when you give, when you pray, and when you fast. When you give, when you pray, and when you fast. 3 times that Jesus gives this assumption or implication. These are 3 things for sure that you're doing. Yeah, Jesus, I'm doing those. Yeah. When you give, when you pray, when you fast. So let's ask this question. What is fasting? What is fasting? A very generic, overly simplified definition could be intentionally abstaining from food and drink for a specific period of time. That's lame. That's a lame definition. I wrote it myself. There's no heart in that. There's no feeling in that. There's no inspiration in that. But traditionally, this is kind of what fasting was. Now, in our day and today, we use the word fasting in different ways today. In both a spiritual sense and a non-spiritual sense. In the kind of the health and diet and fitness area, there's, people talk a lot now about intermittent fasting, right? So maybe you're sitting here and you're like, I fast, yeah. I'm on my 16-8 protocol. I fast 16 hours a day. I eat 8. I'm probably way up high on God's list. Are you kidding me? I fast all the time. I'm not sure Jesus is talking about intermittent fasting to reset your metabolism or your hunger hormones. There can be health benefits for the intermittent fasting. I know it goes on. There can be health benefits, but I don't think that's what Jesus is tapping into here, right? When you intermittently fast, right? I'm not sure that that's it. I think there's some other thing that Jesus is getting at here. Traditionally, it was about food. Nowadays, you hear people, and understandably, I'm not trying to mock anyone. Now it's, I'm fasting my cell phone for a day. I get that. Don't get me wrong. I get that. There's something beautiful about pressing reset sometimes. Or I'm fasting social media, right? You have the people who are, and I know I've done it myself, so I'm just laughing at me, right? You have the person that in your social media friends, that makes a post like, hey, just in case anyone's wondering, I'm not going to be on for a little bit because I'm fasting social media. Like, okay. Not sure I would have noticed anyways if you were gone, but good luck, I've done it myself. I just realized that at the heart of it, no one really cares. Sorry. Yeah. We talk about fasting other things. Traditionally, it was food. Traditionally, it was food. So what is it not? We already said fasting is not a golden ticket. Fasting is not just don't eat and pray and everything will go your way. That's not what fasting is. Fasting is an exercise. Fasting is this thing that I can do to help bring health and strength and maturity to my faith. It's a physical thing that we do that has a spiritual impact. Let's think on that for a second. It's a physical thing that we do that has a spiritual impact. Because ultimately, before I lose you, I want you to understand this. Fasting is not really about the food. Fasting isn't about the food. Fasting isn't about the thing that you're giving up. Yeah, it's a physical thing that has a spiritual impact, like this ring on my finger. I have a metal ring on my left ring finger. Now, does this ring actually say on there, property of Emily Reiner? No, but kinda, right? No, but kinda. This in and of itself is just a metal ring. It's just a metal ring. Probably a lot of you have a metal ring on your finger, right? If I take this ring, I'm not going to, probably because I'm a little chubby. If I take this ring off of my finger, am I automatically not married to Emily? No, of course I'm still married to Emily, right? Me putting on, taking off, and putting on, taking off is not like married, not married, married, not married. This is a physical thing. It's a physical thing that actually says more about my heart than it does about the ring. The point of this ring is not the metal. The point of the ring is the commitment I've made in my heart towards my wife. It's a physical thing that has a greater meaning to it. Yes? Yeah. Baptism, another one of those things. Baptism, another one of those things. It's a physical act that has a spiritual meaning and significance to it. If you've ever been to one of our worship and prayer baptism nights, or maybe you were here years ago when we did baptisms in the gym, right? I'll tell you right now, in case anyone has any misunderstandings about it, there's nothing extraordinary about the water that's in that inflatable tank right here, right? There's not. Aaron and our facilities team just pump it in with like a hose. There's nothing like super holy about it. It's water, right? And there's nothing in and of itself super significant about going under the water. My kids do it in the bathtub. I do it at the end of a water slide, right? There's nothing super significant spiritual about that. But when someone makes a decision to follow the Lord Jesus with their entire heart, and they look to him as the source of salvation, they look to him to have a new life, and they come up on this stage or wherever they might get baptized, and they make that declaration to their entire church family, their friends, to everyone else. And their hope and prayer is that when I go under this water, my old life is gone and dead. And when I come up, I'm made alive, filled with the Spirit of God, declaring to everyone around me that this is the decision that I'm making with my life. That physical thing all of a sudden has a whole lot of spiritual significance, doesn't it? Yeah, it's not quite the same as me in the Wisconsin Dells. There's a spiritual significance to that. It's a physical thing that has a spiritual component to it. It's not about the water. It's not about the metal. It's not about the food. And so maybe a better way of looking at this idea of fasting It's a physical act of abstaining in order to refocus our hearts towards the Lord as our primary source of dependence. I say that again. Fasting is this act of abstaining in order to refocus our hearts towards the Lord as our primary source of dependence. Source and dependence. Because here's the truth. You could be the strongest, most independent, most hold yourself together, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. I can handle every situation and thing in my life. But you go without food, and you come to face with weakness, don't you? You do. Because whether we're willing to admit it or not, you can live without your cell phone. It's hard for us to accept. I'll let it sink in for a moment. You can live without a phone. And we can live without social media. Good Lord knows we can live without social media. We can. It might seem really hard because we've built up this almost dependency and addiction on it, but we can live without cell phone. We can live without social media. But eventually, you can't live without food. It doesn't matter if you are the richest person on earth, if you're on the top of the socioeconomic bracket or the bottom. It doesn't matter if you are type A, independent, strong, I can pull myself up and I can handle life, or you're not. It doesn't matter where you are in life. This like equal leveling ground amongst all of us is that these human frames are dependent on food. So you might be the strongest, most independent, I can take care of everything in life, and yet go a day without food and realize I'm not as independent as I thought. Or bring it into your world. You can be the strongest, most independent, most hold yourself together, pull yourself up by the bootstraps type person, but then your marriage hits a rough spot. It's been 5 years, 10 years in. You've added kids to the equation. Communication is different. Life is different. Stresses are different. Things are busier. And you think to yourself, I can handle this. I can pull it together. I can fix it. I can fix our marriage. I can hold it all together. Everything's fine. Everything's good. Everything's great. But deep down, you know things aren't that good. I can't hold this together on my own. I don't know how to fix this. Well, there just might be an exercise for that called fasting. When I've hit the end of my own ability, when I realize that I am not solely dependent on me, now all of a sudden I have the opportunity through fasting to refocus my attention and realize ultimately I'm dependent on you. I can't fix this. I've tried. I can't hold this all together. I've tried. I can't make this all right. I've tried. I have tried everything in my power to make this marriage better, and it's hard, and I don't know that I can. And all of a sudden, you hit the same wall that you might hit after a day of not eating, and you realize I'm not necessarily as strong as I thought I was. I need strength from outside of myself. Yeah, there's an exercise for that. Or maybe we tried to be the most strong, independent, pull yourself together, I can tackle the world and handle everything, and yet deep down we know, there's a phrase we use around here, deep down we know that there's an area of sin that we try as hard as we can to hide from everyone else. It's a struggle, it's a temptation, it's an area of sin, it's an area of difficulty. Around here, sometimes, Shane and others will call it like the beast inside of us. Think of it as a beast, this monster, this thing that creeps in. It always presents itself in times of feeling alone, feeling discouraged, feeling bored, feeling like you're not seen, like you're not valued. And all of a sudden that beast starts creeping up. Maybe that beast has a name in your life called anger, rage, that rage monster, right? And you try as best as you can to hold yourself together. You put on a good face. You show up in the school line. You're good to go. Everyone's fine. Your employees, everything's good. But inside, you know that you're redlining more times than not. And if one little thing is said wrong that you don't like, if one thing doesn't go good in your day, if one person cuts you off, if you can't find your keys, if one thing isn't immediately obeyed by your kids in that moment, which I'm sure all of our kids obey right when we tell them to do something, then all of a sudden that red line is, that beast comes out. And we try telling ourselves that we got under control. It's fine, it's good, it's fine. I can hold this, I can pull myself together, I can handle this myself, I can take care of that anger and that rage, until finally we realize, I'm not sure I can. Yeah, we hit the same wall that we hit after a day of not eating. Maybe I'm not as strong as I thought I was. Maybe I'm not as independent as I thought I was. Maybe my source isn't just me, God. I need to refocus my thoughts. I need to refocus my feelings, my heart, my emotions. I need to refocus my decisions on you. God, I can't do this on my own. There is an exercise for dealing with that monster, that beast. It's called fasting. It's a physical thing with a spiritual component. It's almost our way of saying, I can go a meal without food, or I can go a day without food, but I don't want to trick myself into believing that I can go a day without you anymore. As strong and independent and I can take on the world by myself as I try to be, I can go a day without food. But I don't want to trick myself into believing I can go a day without you in my life. I need to refocus my thoughts. I need to refocus my emotions. I need to refocus my decisions. I need to refocus that Hebrew understanding of the heart back to you. See, it's not about the food. It's about refocusing ourselves back to the Lord and realizing I can't just be independent and dependent on me for everything. Yeah. So what is fasting? This physical act of abstaining in order to refocus our hearts towards the Lord as our primary source of dependence. I can go without food. I don't want to go without you. What's sad is in our world, and I think in our own faith, and I'll say this about my own life, sometimes you go a meal without eating, or sometimes you're just super busy. You ever had that? You get super busy, you go throughout your whole day, you're not even thinking about it, and then at the end of the day, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't eat. And what are you feeling? You're feeling hunger. You're feeling the lack of those calories. You're feeling the fact that you didn't eat. I wonder how often our abstaining from food hits us before our abstaining the presence of God hits us. How long can we go without interacting with the Lord? How long can we go without engaging in the Word or engaging in prayer? How long can we go without feeding our own spirit before we get hungry? Because something tells me our food hunger hits us before our spiritual hunger does. And so this act of fasting is an exercise for that. It refocuses us and says, you know what, again, I can go a day without food. I don't want to kid myself into believing I can go a day without you. Yeah, so that's fasting. This physical act with a spiritual component. Abstaining that I can refocus this heart, my thoughts, my emotions, my decisions back on God as my primary source of dependence. Okay, that's what fasting is. Is fasting biblical? It's a good question. Some people ask, is fasting even in the Bible? A few times. It's a little sampling up on the screen. Is fasting biblical? Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's all over the Bible, from the beginning to the end, from Old Testament to New Testament. And fasting was used in different ways for different reasons. All the way back in the days of Moses in the book of Exodus, before Moses goes up on top of this Mount Sinai, right, to get the law from God, to engage with like the actual tangible, physical, I can see it, feel it, touch it, sense it, presence of God, like full on Charlton Heston. Before Moses goes up on top of the mountain, they call this fast. Yeah, everyone's going to fast today. Yeah, because we all need to refocus our thoughts and our minds, our attention, because we're about to engage with the presence of God. Yeah. Let's make sure that our thoughts are right, that our emotions are right, our feelings are right, our decisions are right. We need to refocus ourselves back on God. Yeah. Sometimes we can fast, we can take a meal, we can take a day and just say, like, God, I'm not going to eat because I know I can go without food, but I know I can't go without you, and so I'm just going to fast just so I can focus on your presence. Because it's been a long time. Sometimes we go through those what we call dry seasons or wilderness seasons or desert seasons, and we try to escape them. We try to run away from them. We try to figure out, well, where's God? Why did he leave? He never left. So really, it's a matter of in that season being like, okay, I'm going to pray, I'm going to fast, I'm going to refocus my heart, my thoughts, my emotions, my decisions on you. God, I'm fasting simply to experience your presence. Yeah, there's something for that. There's beauty in that. On the Day of Atonement, modern day, it was called Yom Kippur in the Jewish faith. It was the one day where like the high priest would bring the sacrifice for all of the nation's sins. And they called a national day of fast forever. Everyone's going to fast today. Why? Because we're presenting before God this sacrifice that we're asking for his mercy in the midst of all the things that we did wrong this year. There can be a beautiful moment where I decide I'm going to take a meal, or I'm going to take a day, I'm going to fast, and I'm going to pray. I'm simply going to ask God for mercy. God, I'm presenting my life before you. This is all my crud. This is all the junk in my life, and I know it. It's been a long time since I've admitted to you. It's been a long time since I brought this to you. God, I'm just praying and fasting and seeking your presence, just asking for your mercy and your forgiveness and your grace in this moment. That can be a beautiful thing. Yeah, that's in the Bible. Some of the kings of the Old Testament would fast before they went off to war or battle. The psalmists sometimes would fast simply to create within them this sense of the restoring the beauty that they had before God, to be in his presence once again. This young girl named Hadassah, I like that name, to be honest with you, Hadassah, but later on she became known as Esther. Esther calls a 3-day fast that all the people should fast and pray before she goes and stands before the king and asks that her people not be the victim of a genocide. Fasting and prayer can actually be a component of interceding for others. Maybe you're watching the news and something hits you, it strikes you. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. I can't exactly just get on a plane and go to the other side of the world and try to fix that. I don't know how I'm supposed to think about that. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about that. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. Or maybe there's something happening in your family or your marriage with your kids or someone else, a friend of the family. There's an event happening and some event is capturing your head and you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do about that. It can be a beautiful thing to take a meal or take a day and say, Lord, I'm just going to fast and pray. Would you give me your thoughts? Would you give me your feelings, your emotions? Would you help me make the decisions you would make? Help me refocus myself towards you. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with this. Fasting can be a great tool of interceding for others. I'm simply saying, I don't want to rely on my own thoughts, my own feelings, my own decisions, my own emotions. I try so hard to do everything on my own. I need to refocus it. How would you do this? The prophets fasted as they tried to intercede for the people of Israel to return back to faithfulness. Jesus was brought out into the wilderness to fast for 40 days. The apostles and the early church fathers often fasted as a way of, well, I was going to say, to beat my body into submission so I could live with full devotion. I will have no other master in my life but you. So is fasting biblical? Yes. In fact, fasting is talked about more, and then that's, okay. It's talked about more than other things that we think about in the Christian faith quite often. In fact, you probably find more references to fasting in the Bible than baptism. But we often think about baptism more, don't we? Some of our churches require baptism. We have these incredible, beautiful worship and prayer nights with baptism. They're awesome. They're beautiful. We don't necessarily have worship and fasting nights. But it's still in the Bible. It's all over the Bible. Fasting definitely seems to be on the heart of God. And so there is a biblical precedent. We know what fasting is. So why do we fast? We've already talked a little bit about it. But why do we fast? Throughout the Bible, you hear these different words like spirit, soul, and body. The early church fathers would often teach that we are created of spirit, soul, and body. Or a much simpler way of putting it is we're one thing, but we're actually three things while we're one thing. Sometimes I just do that for fun. Excuse me. We're one thing, but we're actually three things, but we're one thing. We're spirit, soul, and body. Real quick. The early church fathers often taught that within us is spirit. We've heard the word spirit. There's a spirit in you, have a spirit? Yeah, spirit. Spirit is often this thing that was seen as like, this is the part of us that's created in the image of God. It's the part of us that just asks the question, there must be something more beyond all of this. For some early traditions, the spirit was the sense of truth. It's that thing within us, that gut sense that something is right and something is wrong. Spirit is a part of us that was completely redeemed before the Lord. The spirit is a part of us that connects the most with God. On the other end of the spectrum is this body. In the New Testament, this word flesh was used. In the Greek, it's the word called sarx. And this idea of the sarx, the flesh, is that it's kind of the thing that just wants to feed itself often. It's our appetites and our cravings. It's the things that we want, when we want it, how we want it. And it can be good things. It can be things like food or sex or self-image or the way that we see ourselves, our identity, right? In and of themselves, not bad. Good things. And right in the middle is the soul. The soul is a lot like that Hebrew understanding of the heart. My thoughts, my emotions, my feelings, my decisions. But also, it is the thing that makes you undeniably you beyond anyone else in the world. It's you. It's your soul. And so even if two of us made the same decisions or had the same emotions or even thought some of the same thoughts, you and I are very different because this is the only soul of Jon Wesley Reiner that there is right now, that I know of. It's my own soul. And no one can give a sense of worship from this soul to God but me. It's me. It's undeniably me. It's what makes me me. But the soul is also where I make my decisions. So track with me for 1 minute longer. The early church fathers often said that when mankind was created, Adam and Eve in the biblical story, that their main line of communication was meant to be their spirit, that they actually experienced and interrelated and communicated with the presence of God. When God would say, walk in the garden, when God would say, eat of these trees, when God would say, name these animals, it was just this direct, I understand it's truth. I can sense that this is God, that this is right. I feel it in my spirit. There's this sense of being alive within me. And then my soul simply makes the decision that God has asked me to do. And then my body carries it out. I was supposed to be mastered by the Spirit of God. I was supposed to be in submission relationship with the presence and Spirit of God. That's how I was supposed to live. And my sense of identity, my soul, was simply meant to reflect that and carry it out in my body. That was meant to be the role. All those other appetites and cravings are good, but they're also held within parameters and borders. The things that I want are always submitted to a greater sense of what God is asking of me, not just me let loose to get what I want. But those same early church fathers said that when sin enters our lives, it's almost like that whole system gets flipped upside down. And rather than the driving force of my life being my spirit connected to the Lord, it's all those cravings. It's the wants. It's my self-image. It's my identity. It's those temptations and cravings. It's the things that I just want when I want it. And my soul learns a pattern of making decisions that just get those things. How's the easiest, best, most efficient way for me to get what I want? Satisfy my cravings. There's an exercise for that. The idea of fasting is to try to begin flipping that thing back upright. I'm not driven by my self-image. I'm not driven by my insecurities. I'm not driven by my appetites or my cravings. I'm not driven by that beast and monster within me. Instead, I'm driven by what the Lord calls me to do. I actually prioritize hearing from His Spirit, actually submit myself to living in obedience to Him. I actually intentionally spend time with Him, refocusing my thoughts and my emotions, my decisions on His leadership. I want to be a true apprentice to Him. I want to do things the way that He calls me to, not just what I want. And so fasting refocuses my heart, my thoughts, my emotions, my decisions back to God. Now, at this point in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus makes this kind of like stop. And maybe we should have too, but we're not going to. He makes this stop, and now all of a sudden he starts talking about something else, but bear with me. He says this, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and vermin destroy, and where thieves come in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. He's going to start talking about our possessions, wealth, the things that we have, right? Whether we have a whole lot or we have a whole little, the point is still the same. And in these verses, he's using the analogy of what you store up and how easily it can be taken away from you. Don't store up possessions on earth that might seem so important to you. And you might focus all of your attention on getting more and getting more and getting more and getting more and building up more and having a better title, a better promotion, or more this or more possessions or more money or whatever it might be, this insatiable desire for more. And yet Jesus is saying it's all so temporary. It's all just so right here that a moth can destroy it. A rat can come in and destroy it. Rust can destroy it. A thief can come in and take it. It only has a temporary value, not an eternal value. Stop focusing all your attention on storing up things that you can't take beyond here. Stop storing up things that will only last for right here and right now. Jesus is saying, what good is it to store up what you think is your treasure here on earth when it's only good here on earth? Instead, start focusing your attention on a heavenly treasure, on something that's eternal Start refocusing your mind and your emotions, your thoughts and your decisions, not on focusing on how good can I make my life here, but how much of an impact can I have for eternity. What he's not saying is, oh, if you have money, you should feel bad about it. What he's not saying is that there's something in and of itself wrong with money or wealth. He's simply saying, if that is the focus and my primary treasure, then my heart, in verse 21, will also follow it. If your focus and your attention and your whole life's purpose is just building up wealth and possessions and everything here, the reality is it will stay here. The reality is that it won't go with you. And the reality is that at any point someone can come in and take it and it's not yours anymore. A rat can come in and take away. Rust could come in and take it away. Anything can come and destroy it. It doesn't have eternal value. But the greatest mistake is not even those treasures. It's the fact that you put your heart on it. It's that you put your thoughts into it, your emotions in it, your decisions in it. There was a survey done a while ago, and they asked different socioeconomic brackets. How much would you have to make to be happy? Yeah. So they asked a bracket that was like annual income of $25,000 a year. How much would you have to make to be happy? Their answer was like $50,000 a year. Okay? But then they asked a bracket that was about $50,000 a year. How much would you have to make to be happy? They said $100,000. The number always changed. It wasn't like a consistent number. If I make X amount of money, then I'm going to be happy. If I have X amount of title or this promotion or this thing, it wasn't that. It was always that if I just had more, if I had twice as much as I have, then I'll be happy. It didn't matter what bracket they were in. They always said if I had twice as much more, then I would be happy. And what is Jesus saying? There's an unsatiable desire. There's a beast within us that will always say, if I just had more, if I just had more, if I just had more, if I just had more. And that beast will come in. That beast comes in times of insecurity. That beast comes in times of boredom. That beast comes in when our focus is solely on my ability to pull myself up by my bootstraps. That beast comes in when I think that the only thing that matters is the here and now. There's an exercise for that called fasting. Because maybe the beast within us is a sense of greed, this insatiable desire that I always have to have more, and I'm never content. I'm never content. And so I take a day and I fast and I realign my focus back on the Lord and say, God, I am living for another promotion. I'm living for a better paycheck. I'm living for all these other things, but it's so temporary. Would you focus my mind to think your thoughts, to feel your feelings, and to make your decisions? What matters to you? That is a heavenly treasure, not an earthly treasure. He goes on to use another analogy. He says, the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. Now, the eye in this first century and even the Hebrew culture, the eye was, what do we say? We say things like, well, the eyes are the window to the soul. Yeah, and so we have this idea that the eye takes in light. Now, in this verse, it says, if your eyes are healthy. This word for healthy was actually a sense of like generosity or single-mindedness. The eye was also the center of our focus. So if your eyes are healthy, if your eyes are open, if your eyes are generous, if your eyes are single-minded, then light comes in. Your life will be full of the light of God. Your life will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, in the physical sense, if you're blind, your life is significantly darker, usually, at times, than seeing all the light and color and everything else around you. If your eyes are unhealthy, the sense of life being unhealthy was a life that was not just stingy, it was a life that's self-focused, self-centered, egocentric. If your life only revolves around you, then your focus isn't healthy. Yeah, and I can't let that light in. There isn't light coming in. My perspective isn't the Lord. My focus isn't treasure in heaven. My focus is on me. My focus is on that beast. My focus is on getting what I want. My focus is on the flesh. My focus is on me pulling myself up by my bootstraps all the time. My focus is me. If my focus is always me, there isn't a whole lot of light coming in. Yeah, but if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? Where's my focus? How open are my eyes? How generous am I? How self-focused am I? And how Christ-focused am I? He finally says this in verse 24. No one can serve two masters. He talks about treasures. He talks about our eyes and our focus. And now he's talking about masters. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Obviously, Jesus is pushing this idea of wealth, monetary value, possessions, things like that. Now, in this first century world, it's pretty obvious because they still lived in the way of indentured slavery or servants. There is this assumed obviousness that you can't serve two masters. I can't be a slave to this master and be a slave to this master. I can't follow all the orders of this person who's telling me what to do, but then also be pulled to also have to follow this master over here who has his whole other list of things that I'm supposed to do. How am I supposed to obey this one and obey that one, spend my time here and spend my time there? How am I supposed to focus on this and focus on that? I can't serve two different masters. Eventually, I'll probably side with one. I'll spend more of my time over here and begin to despise that one. Or I'll be pulled in this direction and begin to hate that one. I can't be pulled in two different directions. I can't serve two masters. My heart can't be focused on two things. Jesus makes it clear I can't serve both God and money because eventually one of them is going to win out in the end. One of them will win out. Wherever my treasure is, there my heart will be also. So whether we're talking about treasure, whether we're talking about light in our eyes and where's our focus, or we're talking about our sense of devotion and slavery and who's my master, all of it has to do with what holds the focus of my heart, because where your treasure is, your heart will be also. And there's an exercise for that. Called fasting. Maybe it's taking a day and saying, you know what, I can't get so consumed with the next promotion, the next paycheck, the next zero at the end of my income. I can't get so consumed with that. I'm going to take a day and God, would you just refocus my attention on you? Because I don't want to serve two masters. And I know I can go a day without food, but I don't want to assume I can go a day without you. Yeah. So how do we fast? Maybe this is stirring something in. Maybe you're leaving here. I already had people at the first service like, okay, I'm going to start this week. I was like, okay, good. All right, awesome. Give it a try. Let's see how it goes. Yeah. It's not a golden ticket. It's an exercise, right? It's meant to be something that helps strengthen, bring health. Maybe you're already thinking about that relationship. Maybe it is your marriage. And maybe you're thinking to yourself like, I have tried to carry this for so long on my own. I've tried to believe everything's fine. I've tried to put on a happy face. I've tried to make this work. I've tried to pull myself up by my bootstraps and be that leader and be the thing that's going to fix it. I've hit a wall. Maybe it's an area of difficulty, a sin, a temptation, addiction in your life. I can't do this on my own. I have to recognize I can't beat this on my own anymore. Yeah. So how to fast? Here are some simple tips I want to give you because I want to challenge you when you fast. So here it is. Number one, pray and ask God for the grace to begin fasting. This might seem like a non-step, but it really isn't. Because if you've never fasted before, if I've never taken a day without food, ask God for the grace to do so. We have trained ourselves to eat, right? We have trained ourselves sometimes even to eat more than we need to. If you eat 6 to 8 meals a day, your body believes it needs 6 to 8 meals a day. It starts to induce these hunger hormones, even though you're not actually hungry. You're not actually needing food, but your body has become so used to it and accustomed to it. So the first thing I tell people to is simply ask God for the grace. God, I've never done this before. But man, even just listening to that, knowing there are so many things I've tried to be my own source of dependence on. I've depended on myself for my marriage. I'm trying to depend on myself to make this thing work in my life. I tried to put on a happy face and say that this beast, this monster within me isn't really there. I have tried to hold everything together, and I have hit my own weakness over and over and over again. Would you give me the grace to fast? Would you give me the grace to fast and pray? Yeah, number one, pray and ask God for the grace. Number two, start small. Yeah, this is not one of those like, let's go take the mountain tomorrow, everyone, we're doing a 30-day fast. Oh, no, don't do that. I mean, if the Lord is telling you to, fine. But let's just make it clear. I am not telling you to do that. So don't leave this sermon and 21 days from now you're not eating and you're the worst human you've ever been Well, John told me to do this. I most certainly did not. Yeah, it's okay to start small, start manageable, right? It's an exercise. I have no intention of tomorrow going and running an Ironman, right? But I'd be happy if I did like one exercise. I'd be okay if I started working out. I'd be okay if I started taking, right? It's okay to start small. It's okay to start manageable. So for some people, it's as simple as, okay, tomorrow or this week on this day, I'm not going to eat one meal. And this isn't one of those things like, okay, I'm not going to eat and I'm just going to go on with my day and try not to think about it. It's, I'm not going to eat and I'm intentionally going to seek the presence of God. I'm intentionally going to pray. I'm going to seek God's heart for my marriage. I'm going to seek God's heart for my family. I'm going to seek God's heart for this thing that I watch on the news or I see happening in my community. I'm going to seek the heart of God for this beast, this monster within me that I know is there, and I'm so tired of trying to fight it on my own. Or take a 24-hour day. You can take a day. Like, you're not going to die a day. Now, if you have like a serious medical condition, I feel like I need to put this disclaimer in there. Like, you know you. You know you. But otherwise, you're not going to die after a day of not eating. Take a day. Take a day from like noon to noon, right? Say, I'm going to fast. On this day, I'm going to refocus my thoughts, refocus my emotions, refocus my feelings, refocus my decisions, refocus this entire thing of my heart back to God. I'm gonna let God shine some light to that beast within me, that monster within me, because I'm done. I need to fight this thing. I'm going to come before the Lord for my marriage and my family. I'm going to intercede on their behalf. I'm not going to take a back seat to my faith anymore. Start with one meal or one 24-hour period of no food. Some people do no food, but they keep like a juice or something. Between you and the Lord. Don't do coffee, though. There should be a little bit of pain. Number 3, consider fasting at the same time as someone else. Wait a second. I thought Jesus said, don't do it in front of others so that... What Jesus was saying is that in his day, there were some of these religious people who would intentionally make themselves look terrible, right? They wouldn't shower, they wouldn't put on oil, and they would walk around like, we get the impression they would look around sober, just like, oh, look at me, I'm fasting. Look how spiritual I am. Jesus is saying they already have their reward. Their reward was to be seen in front of people, that people would notice them. He said they already got their reward. Yeah, they're just seen by people. But there can be something beautiful about you and your marriage, talking to your spouse and saying, hey, what if we tried this together? What if we fasted next week? What if we both fasted the same meal or both fasted the same day and we just went before the Lord? God, that can be a beautiful thing. Or maybe your small group or a group of friends. What if we fasted together? What if we tried this? What if we encouraged each other and we held each other accountable and we supported each other? Find someone else at the same time that can fast with you. Number 4, keep a journal or a digital note on your fasting. I don't mean like day 1, I didn't eat. Angry emoji. Keep a note. What's the focus? What are you trying to refocus your life on? What's coming out? In that moment of weakness or feeling alone or feeling weak, what monster is starting to present itself other than being hangry? What's starting to bubble up to the surface? Write it down. Man, I never even realized. There it is. There it is. There's that monster. What is the thing that you're trying to pray about? What is the Lord showing you about your marriage or your feelings? God, give me your thoughts, your feelings, so I can make those decisions. Keep a journal of it. Number 5, ask the Lord to reveal something about him and you while you're fasting. God, I want to see you differently. Give me your thoughts. Give me your emotions. Give me your decisions. I can live a day without food, but I want to stop kidding myself that I can live a day without you. I want to feel hungry for you again. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. I want to hunger for you again. And finally this, pray and ask God how fasting can be more part of your life. So when you fast this way. Stand up. Oh, that's an order. Please join me in standing. God, I thank you for your word. I thank you for these spiritual exercises. Not that they make you love us more, forgive us more, or make us better in your sight. Because they strengthen us. They bring health to our spirit. They help us withstand those areas of sin. They help us address the beast within us, that whether it's money or a temptation or that beast or a sin, no other thing would be a master over our lives apart from you. If that means I go a day without eating, so I can realize that my true dependence is not on my stomach, it's not on my pride, it's not on my ability to pull myself up by my bootstraps. I go a day without food to remind myself that I never want to go a day without you. Give us grace to follow through as your disciples in a life of fasting. In your name, amen. Thank you all.